In the world of wild nature, where the forces of nature rule and decide who will live and who will die, man faces a truly terrible and dangerous opponent, the bear. These powerful and unpredictable predators living in the deep forests and snow-capped mountains are capable of turning human life into a nightmare. Today, we will share with you several exciting and chilling stories about how to be vigilant in the wilderness, and that often, even the most skillful hunters can sometimes become prey themselves. Click the like button and subscribe right now. Welcome to Wild Assault. Oregon is one of the most beautiful states in the United States. It is located in the northwest of the country and is known for its diverse landscapes, from the Pacific coast to the mountainous inland areas. Oregon is home to beautiful beaches, mountain peaks, lakes, rivers, forests, and valleys. This place attracts tourists from all over the world for its incredible nature. The state is also famous for its huge variety of flora and fauna. It is home to many species of animals, including deer, wild boar, bobcats, coyotes, beavers, squirrels, birds, and bears. Bears are quite common in Oregon, especially in the western part of the state in the wooded areas. This makes Oregon a popular destination for hunters who come here to hunt bears. One of these hunters is Aaron White, a man with a very interesting story who managed to survive a very difficult situation. Aaron Wyckoff has shown an interest in hunting since he was a child. His father and mother were avid hunters and often took the boy with them on hunting trips. From the time he was an infant, Aaron watched his parents as they prepared equipment, chose hunting methods, and searched for game and fisheries. As soon as Aaron reached the appropriate age, his father started teaching him the basics of hunting. The boy learned to shoot a gun, distinguish between types of animals and game tracks, navigate in the forest, and use different equipment. Over the years, Aaron's passion for hunting only grew stronger. He spent all his free time in nature, studying the behavior of wild animals, their habits and habitats. Hunting became not just a hobby, but a passion to which he devoted increasing amounts of time and energy. Over time, Aaron became an experienced hunter who often participated in various hunting competitions and expeditions. He shared his experiences with other participants, helped them improve their skills, and enjoyed every moment he spent outdoors. For Aaron Wyckoff, hunting became not just a way to pass the time, but a way to find inner peace and enjoy the beauty of nature. His passion for hunting has been an integral part of his life since his childhood. Aaron never hunted alone, as he thought it was a very dangerous activity. But his friend Jacob Moen and his son, 15-year-old Chris Moen, always went hunting with him. Aaron, Jacob, and Chris often went hunting together, not only to spend time in nature, but also to help each other with game. They each had different skills and experiences that helped them hunt successfully. Aaron was an excellent shot and had good instincts. He often picked up the tracks of game and chose the right places to set traps or shoot. Jacob was an experienced hunter who knew how to effectively utilize equipment. Chris, although the youngest, was already performing well and was a great help to his father and friend. Using their combined efforts, they often hunted a variety of animals ranging from rabbits and deer to larger game such as bears and boars. Each of them contributed to the overall effort. Aaron shot the rifle, Jacob provided coordination and equipment, and Chris helped with various tasks as the hunt progressed. Thanks to their efforts and cohesion, they never came home with nothing, constantly catching a variety of game that provided them with food for a long time. But the main thing was not only in successful hunting, but also in the pleasure of spending time together in nature, in communication, and mutual help. Hunting became not only a sporting activity for them, but also a way for them to strengthen their friendship and overcome any difficulties together. It was through this cohesion and understanding that they were able to overcome and survive one very dangerous hunting situation in Oregon. It all started one day when Chris Moen came running to Aaron to tell him that his father wanted to see him urgently. The moment Aaron and Jacob met, the latter shared a story from his and Chris's last hunt. Jacob and Chris went bear hunting in a wooded area of Oregon. After hours of searching, they finally found a bear that was ready to attack. Jacob shot and wounded the beast, but it managed to escape deep into the woods. Jacob suggested that Aaron go in search of the wounded bear to kill it and avoid the bear from attacking the hikers or other hunters. Aaron and Jacob quickly gathered all the gear they needed for a dangerous hunt for a wounded bear. They took 2 rifles loaded to capacity, a supply of ammunition, knives, traps, and bleeding stop supplies. Chris asked to go hunting with Aaron and Jacob, but his father insisted that the inexperienced hunter stay at home so as not to endanger him, since the bear was wounded and therefore very aggressive. After careful preparation, Aaron, Jacob, and Aaron traveled to the wooded area where the bear was wounded. They followed the blood trail and learned that the bear had gone further into the forest, deeper into the area. They decided to take a short break to rest and assess their situation before continuing their search. Aaron shared his experience and knowledge of bears with Jacob so they could be prepared for any surprises. After a short rest and a snack, they continued their search and soon found the bear hiding in a cave. The bear was wounded and ready to attack at any moment. Aaron and Jacob decided to proceed very cautiously and carefully. They approached the cave from both sides to create the bear's only one exit. Aaron slowly approached the cave with his gun at the ready, while Jacob stayed at a distance to act in case of an emergency. After preparing to meet the bear, they waited for the moment when the animal would come out of its cave to strike. Long hours passed. The hunters tried several ways to lure the animal out of the cave, but without success. At this time, Chris, who had stayed at home, did not sit idly by. He decided he couldn't stay idle, knowing that his father and friend were in a dangerous situation. Chris took his own equipment and went in search of the bear, following the same tracks as his father and friend. In the meantime, Aaron suspected something wrong and decided to survey the area around the cave for possible other exit points. He ordered Jacob to move away from the cave exit and to keep in constant communication with Aaron in case the beast came out of the cave, since a one-on-one fight with an injured bear is a very dangerous venture. Aaron cautiously made his way through the bushes and trees looking for another way out of the cave. He surveyed the area around him, following the bear's tracks, and suddenly noticed a sheltered rock with a small opening next to the cave. As he cautiously approached this opening, Aaron heard a noise behind a rock and felt something watching him. He slowly turned around and saw that the bear had come out of its hiding place and was heading straight for him. Aaron immediately signaled to Jacob that the bear was near him, and Jacob rushed to his hunting companion's aid. Aaron quickly raised his rifle and took aim at the attacking bear, but it was too close. The bear growled and approached the hunter without stopping. The first shot rang out, but it did not hit the bear dead. But the bear howled in pain and lunged at the hunter. The bear clung to Aaron's arm and began to gnaw on it. The pain overwhelmed Aaron, but he was able to find the strength to take another shot at the animal. But the shot hit the bear's paw, and it continued to tear the flesh of the hunter's arm with a dead grip. Aaron recalls trying to unclench the bear's jaws. He then tried to roll off the ridge where he and the bear were wrestling, but the bear grabbed him by the calves, pulled him back, and continued to further mutilate the man's body. Suddenly, a shot rang out from nowhere, and the bear collapsed to the ground, moaning its last groans. Aaron opened his eyes and saw Chris, Jacob's son, running toward him. The young hunter had arrived at just the right moment, and Aaron would have been dead. Aaron was immediately transported to the hospital for medical attention. The man was successfully operated on at the hospital and escaped serious injury thanks to the prompt assistance of specialists. He also expressed his gratitude to young Chris for saving his life and noted his bravery. The story of the bear attack was not only a lesson for Aaron and his friends about life and safety, but also about friendship, courage, and mutual aid. This event brought them closer together and made them even closer to each other. Chris Martin was born and raised in the state of Louisiana, USA. From an early age, he dreamed of becoming a police officer and protecting law and order in his hometown. After graduating from high school, he enrolled in the local police academy, where he successfully completed his training and received a license to practice his profession. After several years of service in the police force, Chris Martin proved himself as a talented and courageous officer. He was honored with many awards and commendations for his dedication to service and willingness to sacrifice himself for public safety. During his career, he participated in various crime-fighting operations, dealt with complex criminal cases, and saved people from trouble. His professionalism and professional determination were recognized among both his colleagues and the citizens of the city. Despite his successful police career, Chris Martin realized it was time to retire and devote himself to family and leisure. He retired with the honors and respect of his peers who expressed gratitude for his service. However, even after his service ended, Chris Martin chose to remain active and continue to help fight crime in his region. Chris Martin became a real model for many colleagues and residents of his city, as he made a significant contribution to the public life of his city even after the end of his career in the police. But the fate of this man was extremely tragic after one terrible incident, about which there are still many different legends. According to Chris's wife's preliminary information, the man was traveling out of town to visit his son David because he had once again become a grandfather. Chris's wife was David's stepmother, and their relationship was very strained because David blamed her for his father leaving their mother. Chris Martin was quite excited before traveling to his son's house to see his grandson. He packed his belongings, including a gift for his grandson, and checked his car before leaving. Taking his papers, he got behind the wheel and hit the road. The road passed without incident, and Chris soon arrived at the place. They had a lovely evening, and Chris called his wife with the news that he would be leaving soon. Chris's wife discouraged him from coming back at such a late hour, but the man was adamant. Chris said goodbye to his son and hit the road, but neither of them could have guessed the tragedy that would occur shortly after that meeting. The next morning, Chris never arrived home. His wife became concerned and called the police to report her husband's disappearance. Police began investigating and found out that he was last seen leaving his son's house. Shortly after the search for the missing man began, the police received a report of an accident on the highway near the forest where Chris was driving, and the information was confirmed. One of the cars belonged to the man. However, the body of the police officer could not be found at the scene. The strange thing was that Chris's car was completely intact, while the other car had quite serious damage, after which it became clear to the police that there was no collision of motorists, as well as the bodies of the victims. The police launched an extensive investigation into the incident. Every possible force and resource was brought in to search for the missing officer and one Luke Johnson. With that, his co-workers and friends actively joined the search, scouring the wooded trails in the surrounding area of the accident scene. A short time later, several members of the search party managed to find Chris's dead body and a badly injured but still alive Luke Johnson near the carcass of a large black bear. Luke Johnson was rushed to the hospital as soon as possible. Doctors fought for Luke Johnson's life day and night, performing complex surgeries and administering intensive care. His condition was critical and every minute counted. However, thanks to the professionalism of the medical staff and Luke's own strong will to live, it was possible to stabilize his condition. After Luke regained consciousness, he told his story of what had happened. It was late at night. Luke was calmly driving to his home as if nothing had happened, and he was only distracted for a second, as suddenly a certain animal ran out onto the road, which Luke hit. The impact was so strong that Luke immediately lost consciousness. He woke up only to an elderly man trying to pump him up. It was Chris. Luke told Chris the story of what had happened, and the officer decided to find the animal which had fled into the woods after the collision to make sure it was all right. Luke insisted on calling the police to deal with the situation, but Chris produced a document proving that he was a police officer and said he would deal with it himself. Luke expressed his desire to go with Chris, and the officer had no choice but to agree. Chris and Luke went into the woods in search of the animal that Luke had accidentally hit in the night. They surveyed the area around the accident site and watched for any signs that might indicate the presence of an injured animal. After several hours of searching, Chris and Luke came across the tracks of a large black bear. They followed them and soon found a wounded bear staggering through the woods, moaning painfully. Chris and Luke decided to proceed cautiously, not wanting to antagonize the injured and potentially dangerous animal. They slowly approached to assess the bear's condition. However, suddenly the animal spotted them. The bear growled and paced forward, ready to attack. Chris immediately realized the danger they were in and tried to retreat, but the bear was too fast. The bear's huge paw struck Chris right in the head and he hit a tree nearby with force. Luke thought Chris had just passed out. However, the blow was so strong that the elderly officer was dead. Luke, frightened and desperate, pulled out his gun and began firing at the bear. Despite their best efforts, the bear did not stop and continued to attack. The bear attacked Luke with a terrifying fury, claws and teeth tearing at his clothes and skin, blood streaming down his body. Luke tried to defend himself, but the bear was too strong. He bit and scratched Luke mercilessly, ignoring his screams and moans. Luke eventually passed out from the pain and only woke up in the hospital, under the care of doctors. After Luke's account of what really happened that night, the police, having received information that the injured bear could be dangerous to both people and other animals in the forest, decided to organize a special team to catch it. Police officers with various specialties were brought into the operation, including hunters, veterinarians, and rescuers. The hunters were armed with special bear-catching equipment, and the veterinarians were preparing to disarm the animal once captured. The group was divided into several squads, each given their own instructions and tasks. They began surveying the area of the forest where the injured bear had been spotted and followed his tracks. After several hours of intensive search, one of the teams spotted the fleeing bear and saw that it was still staggering and moaning painfully from its wounds. The police officers immediately acted on the plan and began the operation to capture it. Hidden behind trees, the police slowly approached the bear using group tactics and tactics to block its escape route. They positioned themselves in a circle around the bear to keep it from leaving and began to approach. The rescuers, in turn, were ready to intervene if necessary to keep others safe. The bear was soon captured, and the police successfully completed the operation without a single injury to the officers. The animal was turned over to veterinarians, but after examining the bear, it was concluded that it would not be able to rehabilitate itself from so much mutilation. Chris Martin's funeral was held in the state of Louisiana, with many people coming to say goodbye to the brave officer who lost his life saving another man from a bear. The townspeople expressed their condolences to the family of the deceased and remembered him as a man who gave his life for another. His memory will live on in the hearts of those who knew him, and his valor and dedication will inspire others to do heroic deeds and good deeds. The state of Montana is incredibly rich in a variety of natural beauty and amazing landscapes. Mountain systems, lakes, rivers, and forests create an amazing landscape that draws tourists and outdoor enthusiasts from all over the world. One of the most breathtaking places in the state are the Cabinet Mountains. The Cabinet Mountains is a mountain range that is located in northwestern Montana. This amazing piece of nature is famous for its towering peaks, dense forests, crystal-clear rivers, and rich wildlife. Here you can find a huge number of different flora and fauna, in particular bears that live in this region. On August 4th, 2019, an amazing event occurred in the Cabinet Mountains in northwest Montana that shocked locals and the world alike. Two backpackers came face to face with an adult male grizzly bear, and their journey turned into a real nightmare. Jake and Emily were born in a small town in the state of Alaska. Jake and Emily have been friends since they were young children. Their families live next door to each other in a small town in the state of Alaska, and little Jake and Emily spent almost all of their free time together. They were both passionate about adventure and exploration. They often went on walks around the neighborhood of the town, exploring new places and discovering interesting natural phenomena. As Jake and Emily grew up, their friendship turned into something more. They realized that they couldn't bear to be without each other and fell in love with each other. After high school, they went to the same university and continued to explore the world together. After graduation, they returned to their hometown and decided they wanted to spend the rest of their lives together. Jake proposed to Emily, and she accepted. Jake and Emily continued to travel the world, their passion for adventure and exploration only growing stronger as time went on. They visited many countries and continents, explored ancient ruins, climbed to the top of mountains, explored wild jungles and deserts. One day, while traveling through southern America, Jake and Emily found themselves in serious trouble. They decided that for their next adventure, they needed to travel to the Cabinet Mountains in northwest Montana. Jake and Emily began preparing for their trip to the Cabinet Mountains long before they left. They researched an itinerary and made a list of necessary gear and provisions. Finally, when all preparations were complete, Jake and Emily set off on their new adventure in the Cabinet Mountains. They were sure they were prepared for any hardships on such a challenging route and could truly enjoy all the beauty of those places. Jake and Emily decided that to be safe, they would be better off using a local guide to lead them into the Cabinet Mountains. They found a local hunter named Jack who was familiar with all the dangers of their route. On the way to the mountains, Jack warned Jake and Emily that the bears, of which there are a great number in those places, are now in a period when they can be very aggressive. He warned them to remain vigilant and not to approach the bears under any circumstances. Finally, after a long journey, they reached the Cabinet Mountains and Jake left, leaving the young hikers alone with the beauty of the state of Montana. Jake and Emily enjoyed the beauty of the Cabinet Mountains. They saw stunning views of mountain peaks, picturesque lakes, and lush forests. After walking a long way, they finally decided that it was time to take a break, as it was getting towards evening, and the travelers realized that traveling through such terrain at night was not a good idea. They built a fire, cooked a hot supper from their supplies, and made a small camp. In the evening, they were able to see the starry sky, which was bright and incredibly beautiful away from the city lights. Jake and Emily decided to set up their camp as best they could to spend the night comfortably and safely. They stowed all the food and scented items in their supply bags so as not to attract wildlife. They laid out their sleeping bags and inflated air mattresses for extra comfort and prepared to sleep when suddenly something terrible happened. As Emily said, nothing seemed to be going wrong. They sat and talked about their future together and discussed new places they would like to visit after this trip. Everything was calm and peaceful. The dark forest shrouded the surroundings with its gloomy blanket, only the faint moonlight penetrating through the thick foliage. The young men looked at each other in silence, and the silence was interrupted only by an eerie bird song and rustling in the bushes. In the darkness, something moved, something large and strong. Heavy footsteps sounded closer and closer. A couple of tourists were very wary and held their breath as suddenly from behind the dark trees burst out a huge grizzly bear. His powerful paws were mottled with sharp claws, and his teeth shimmered menacingly in the pale light of the moon. His eyes burned with a greedy flame. He noticed his victims. The bear slowly approached, its fur shimmering in the moonlight, making its appearance even more intimidating. It stood before them, raising its huge paws and displaying its sharp fangs ready to attack. Jack and Emily stood motionless, their hearts hammering harder as they realized that there was little time left. The bear was approaching faster and faster. Its soul was imbued with the animal instinct to attack. At the moment when the bear was as close as possible, it was as if all the senses of the men were amplified 1,000-fold, and they noticed every detail. His breath was hot and wet. It seemed that the young men were defenseless against his mighty power. Suddenly, Jack decided to distract the bear to protect his spouse. He shouted and began to slowly back away from the camp, attracting the giant's attention. The bear, enraged, began to advance on the man. Emily desperately searched for her weapon, which was in Jack's backpack just in case, as the bear overtook the man. The bear suddenly developed speed and with a deafening roar rushed at Jack. Its mighty paws came down on the unprotected man with a clatter, tearing through his clothes and skin. The claws pierced the flesh, leaving deep wounds from which blood gushed. Jack screamed in pain, and the huge beast's mouth opened and sharp teeth sank into his shoulder. All this horror continued until Emily drew her gun and fired the first shot, which hit the belly of the beast. The bear lunged at Emily in a rage, and the woman fired all of her remaining ammunition at the bear. The bear fell to the ground with a clatter, kicking its paws non-stop and howling in pain. Emily rushed to Jack, but it was too late. The man was dead. Fear and horror engulfed Emily, and she could not hold back her tears. The girl was confused and did not know what to do. But after searching Jack's backpack, she was able to find a means of communication and called the emergency service. After she recounted what had happened, the emergency services were able to locate the exact coordinates from which the call had been made, and the rescuers quickly retrieved Emily, Jack's dead body, and the bear carcass. She experienced tremendous pain and grief, blamed herself for what had happened, but in time was able to accept and overcome the horrific experience.